If you're earning $120,000 in Sydney and still opening your banking app 2 days before payday, you're not irresponsible. You're being systematically charged for living here. $18,400. That's what this city quietly extracts from the average resident every single year. Not through rent, not through lifestyle choices, but through a set of invisible financial traps that were deliberately engineered into Sydney's geography. You're about to see exactly how it works, and once you do, you won't be able to look at this city the same way again. Here's what financial analysts have started calling the Sydney Surcharge. Over the past 2 decades, the state government made a calculated decision. Instead of raising taxes to fund infrastructure, they privatized it, handing corporations legal control over roads, tunnels, and transit corridors, then granting them the permanent right to charge you for using them. They didn't tax your income, they taxed your geography. And nobody gets taxed harder by geography than the people Transurban built this city around. Sydney is the most heavily tolled city on the planet. Sit with that. Not London, not Tokyo, not New York, Sydney. One private company controls the arterial roads connecting Western Sydney to the rest of the city. If you live west of Parramatta, you are paying a private tariff every single day just to go to work. The math is brutal. Drive the M2, M4, M5, or the WestConnex network daily, and you're bleeding $60 to $80 a week. That's $3,500 a year after tax, meaning you need to earn over $5,000 gross just to pay for the right to sit in traffic. Not the car, not the petrol, just the road. That's an annual subscription to your own commute, and unlike Netflix, you can't cancel it. Drop a number in the comments right now. I want to know how many of these traps are currently hitting your account, because most people watching this are being charged by at least 3 of them without realizing. And if you're thinking about switching to the train to dodge the tolls, you're about to be very disappointed. You decide you don't want to commute from the west, so you buy an apartment closer to the city. It's the only realistic way to afford living within 20 kilometers of the CBD without inheriting a trust fund. You assume you've made a smart financial play. You own the walls, you pay the mortgage, you think you're safe. But nobody warned you about the stealth Strata squeeze. 10 years ago, a standard 2-bedroom apartment might have charged you $800 a quarter for Strata levies. It covered the cleaners, the elevator maintenance, maybe a tiny sinking fund. Today, that exact same apartment is easily charging $2,500 a quarter, sometimes $3,000. Why? Because Sydney has suffered an absolute epidemic of building defects over the last 15 years. Developers threw up towers at breakneck speed, dissolved their companies, and left buyers holding the bag. Combine that with skyrocketing insurance premiums across the entire construction sector, and you are trapped. That $2,500 a quarter equals $10,000 a year of after-tax money. It is a completely invisible secondary mortgage that builds zero equity. You are essentially buying a luxury car, but the dealership legally forces you to buy a new set of tires every 3 months just because they say so. If you think renting saves you from this, you are entirely wrong. Landlords don't eat those costs. They pass every single dollar directly into your weekly rent increase. The building's problems become your structural deficit. But housing is just the big target. Let's look at the microtransactions. Let's talk about how your local supermarket is actively playing you. Supermarkets in Sydney, along with petrol stations and insurance companies, completely rely on algorithmic postcode pricing. If you live in the eastern suburbs, the lower North Shore, or the inner west, you pay a premium environment surcharge. The exact same basket of items, the identical brand of milk, the exact same loaf of bread at a Woolworths Metro in Double Bay costs noticeably more than the same basket in Penrith. The algorithm is incredibly cold. It calculates risk and price elasticity based entirely on your zip code. Never let your car insurance or home insurance auto-renew in this city. The system assumes that if you live in a wealthy postcode, you are too busy or too comfortable to check the price tag. Your premium swings by hundreds of dollars simply by jumping a boundary line on a map. It's a literal tax bracket applied directly to your groceries and your Mazda. No human is reviewing this. The machine just tests how far it can push your wallet before you complain. Actually, 73% of you watching right now aren't subscribed. That's entirely fine if you want to keep absorbing the mainstream financial advice that keeps you broke. But if you want to keep identifying the money leaks the corporations desperately want to keep hitting, hit subscribe right now. We post these investigations twice a week. Everything we just covered reflects structural costs. The tolls, the strata, the postcode penalties. You can try to avoid them, but they are built into the concrete of the city. Now we enter the psychological traps. This is where Sydney really does damage. Let's examine the going out base rate. In a normal city, meeting a friend for a casual catch-up might cost you $10 for a coffee. Maybe you grab a sandwich and sit in a park. In Sydney, the social infrastructure has evolved into a high-friction environment. The assumed cost simply to exit your front door and interact with another human being is $100 minimum. A few standard schooners at the pub hits $40 instantly. A completely run-of-the-mill dinner is $60. We are losing what sociologists call third places. These are spaces where you can exist, socialize, and relax without an immediate financial transaction attached. They are dying. They've been aggressively replaced by venue minimums, weekend percentage surcharges, public holiday taxes, mandatory set menus for groups larger than 4 people. It feels exactly like living inside an airport terminal. Every single seat demands a purchase. If you catch up with friends twice a weekend, that is an $800 a month social tax. If you don't deliberately opt out and start hosting dinners at home, this economy breaks your savings account by default. You are paying premium rates just for the right to maintain your friendships. If you have a friend, a partner, or a family member living in Sydney right now, send them this video immediately. Seriously. Every month they blindly ignore these exact traps, they lose thousands. It is basic math. Because the hardest trap to escape here is the illusion of micro-wealth. Sydney is a fiercely visual, status-driven city. True wealth used to mean owning a massive house outright. Since that reality is mathematically dead for a massive portion of young professionals, our brains trigger a psychological compensatory behavior. We substitute real assets with aggressive micro-wealth displays. You can't buy the $2 million terrace house in Surrey Hills, so your brain tricks you into buying the $80,000 European SUV on an insane finance rate. You buy the $200 activewear. You pay a ridiculous monthly fee for a boutique Pilates studio. The aesthetic is perfect. You look incredibly wealthy on Instagram, but the financial engine driving your life is completely dying. You are bleeding capital just to keep up the facade of a successful Sydneysider. It's the ultimate trap, looking rich while your net worth plummets. It's like putting a fresh coat of premium paint on a car with a blown transmission. Then, the system comes for your health. Australians pride themselves on universal healthcare. We talk up Medicare like it protects us from everything, but try finding a bulk billing clinic in Sydney right now. They are rapidly becoming an endangered species. It all comes back to the property market. Commercial rents in Sydney are astronomical. Because clinic owners have to pay those rents, medical practices simply cannot survive on the fixed government Medicare rebate. The money doesn't add up. The immediate result? The gap fee. A completely standard trip to a general practitioner now routinely carries a $40 to $70 out-of-pocket cost. Need a specialist? That gap jumps to $200. Need an ultrasound? Another $150. Living in a premium property market means the supply chain of basic human needs must charge you premium prices just to keep their own lights on. It's a literal health tax imposed by property values. Having Medicare in Sydney is like having an insurance policy that only activates if you can afford to pay a steep deductible every single time you sneeze. And because things cost so much, people start delaying their appointments. They wait to see if an issue goes away on its own. Prevention is always cheaper than the cure, but in this city, avoiding the doctor because of a $70 gap fee will eventually wreck both your body and your bank account. Let's do the terrifying math on everything. If you fall victim to the Transurban toll trap, if you get caught in the Strata squeeze, if you passively accept the algorithmic postcode pricing on your insurance, if you participate in the $100 minimum social interactions, if you fall for the micro-wealth aesthetic creep, and if you pay the medical gap fees, You are hemorrhaging $18,000 a year of post-tax money. That is 3 to 4 months of your absolute hardest labor surrendered entirely to the friction of living in this specific geography. You do not have a spending problem. You have a visibility problem. The system isn't broken. That is the hardest pill to swallow. It is working exactly as it was designed to work. It just wasn't designed for you to win. So what do you actually do about it? You have to stop playing the game on autopilot. First, you conduct a ruthless audit of the past 90 days. Pull your bank statements. Do not estimate. Actually look at the numbers. Find your stealth leaks. Circle the direct debits you forgot about. Highlight exactly how much Transurban took from you. Second, you stop accepting the Sydney premium as a fixed law of physics. It isn't. It's a choice. Negotiate your rent aggressively with comparable property data. Stop shopping at the Metro supermarket entirely. Call your car insurer today and threaten to leave if they don't beat a competitor's quote. They will almost always drop the price because the algorithm only punishes silence. Third, insulate yourself from the aesthetic trap. Radical financial transparency with your social circle is your best defense. Normalize saying that a specific restaurant is out of your budget this month. Kill the aesthetic lease. The richest people I know in this city are completely invisible. They wear plain clothes and drive 10-year-old Toyotas while buying index funds every 2 weeks. We pretend Sydney is just a sunny, beautiful place by the harbor, but financially, it's an arena. You either understand the rules of the arena or you pay the people who do. But honestly, the Sydney traps don't even compare to what the superannuation industry is legally doing to your retirement account right now, no matter where in Australia you live. Click the video on your screen right now because what the major funds and the banks are doing with your money makes everything in this video look like absolute pocket change.